Okay, so we are back to Cracks in Postmodernity with Billy McMorris, who is a contributing editor at The Spectator. Welcome. We're very happy to have you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So I discovered you through a recent article about Biden and the Juul ban. But as I went through the rest of your articles, I saw you had some really fascinating hot takes on smoking in general. So I want to start from the beginning. One of your earlier articles was about when they raised the smoking age to 21. I will say I was 20 when they raised the age in Manhattan, in New York, and they were still selling cigs to me, even though they raised the age.
Heroes.
So yeah, I mean, real good Samaritans. So I got by lucky, but I know there are many people suffering because of this. But tell us a little bit about this article. I'm gonna quote some stuff you said, but you just give us a little summary for those who haven't read it yet.
Well, so Donald Trump, upon his exit from office, decided that he would thank his supporters. And one of his last lame duck acts was to sign legislation sponsored by Mitch McConnell and Tim Kaine, both of them from tobacco states, Kentucky and Virginia, respectively, raising the cigarette smoking age to 21. Now, a lot of states had actually done this before, but with exemptions for active duty soldiers and the like. And what they did was they decided to codify the most progressive smoking ages in the country. I think Hawaii was the first one to do it, much the same way that Nancy Pelosi wants to codify Roe. And they always say that, you know, it took Nixon to open up China. It took a Republican like Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump, who was famously a teetotaling never smoker, to raise the cigarette smoking age to 21. And much like opening up China, this has been a disaster for America's youth, for America's working class. It was, Trump is fond of saying, you know, on the campaign trail, I like stupid people. I like the high school dropouts and the welders and the union men. And who does he think these people are? They are smokers. So I can only view this through a punitive lens.
But why is he a teetotaling non-smoker? Like, what's his problem with smoking? I would think he would have enjoyed a cigarette every now and then.
Well, see, the teetotaling bit was because he had an alcoholic brother. I've never understood the never smoking thing, except, you know, it is something that the billionaire class does have in common. These are people who have all the money in the world and they all want to live forever so that they can enjoy their riches. So why would they want to lessen their time on earth? I counter that with saying, why eat salmon? Why did you become a billionaire just to eat salmon instead of steak? And this is also what the billionaire class enjoys spending their time on. They like herbal supplements and salmon, and they think that the plebes of the world do not need tobacco to get them through. They just need, you know, a Facebook page and a bunch of opioids, and they'll be happy.
So I think, yeah, like you definitely see the class divide implicated in this whole issue. And I'm going to read one of the quotes from the article. So you say, elites are suspicious of any child who does something as common as puff a cigarette or take a sip of beer, because studies, and there are always studies, show smoking requires workers to leave their desks and alcohol can hurt productivity. And then those same moralizers are wide open to the idea of psychedelics if the drugs can improve your ability to program a computer, particularly if that program can convert laborers into gig workers or better robots. So you definitely see how there's an economic interest in.
Absolutely. I don't remember writing that. That's really smart.
Yeah, it's I think it's just
that's but no, it's absolutely true. And you know, you have philosophers like Lutwak or Lutwak. I never I'm a reader. I'm not a listener. Who have posited that the reason we have a geriatric crumbling republic is because we elect senile leaders, and tobacco, which is and nicotine in particular, have shown to improve IQs of their users, and they also help to kill them off before they become senile, feeble old men and old women. I'm progressive. I recognize that Nancy Pelosi is older than Joe Biden and the leader. So this is one of those things where you increase productivity, but when you increase longevity for longevity's sake, you're going to end up with a bunch of doddering billionaires who will bring about the demise of the republic. Personally, I would take the auto mechanic who smokes while he changes my engine oil over one of these people.
And just to get philosophical for a second, I think it's interesting that this mentality of productivity that really wants to turn us into robots um, is so threatened by cigarette smoking because there is a contemplative kind of dimension to the experience, especially if you do it like in between working while taking breaks. Like it makes you really think about like, what is the purpose of my work? What of the finitude of my existence? The labor that I do for what to eventually die. Like it really makes you look at life. It makes you look at the desire for pleasure in the midst of work, for distraction. Um, and again, like it's not just that taking a break is a threat to productivity, it's the contemplation of the meaning of work on that existential level. The
Oh,
pros
absolutely.
to corporate power, to whoever.
So this is 100% true. I actually wrote about this in my follow piece to the jewel piece, was why corporations are so interested in abortion, and it is the same reason that corporations don't like you smoking on their grounds. It's the same reason that corporations don't want you going out for lunch. They will happily bring in an in-house chef
Yep.
who will cook your food there in a cafeteria setting to keep you in loco parentis on the corporate campus. And that's what's so funny about our quote unquote rebellious, break stuff Silicon Valley mentality is these guys leave a college campus saying that bringing it back in loco parentis would be just a total infringement of their freedom. And then they get to the corporate work environment and they put in 90-hour weeks because there's a food truck and a bocce ball tournament and the corporation calls itself a family. So long as they can stage an intervention if you smoke a cigarette.
Yep.
That might start making you think about starting a real family. Who knows?
Which is very threatening. And it's funny how you juxtapose. You says it can get you in trouble with the bureaucrats and administrators and parents, but not your priest who knows better. So again, it's like there is this transcendent dimension to the experience of smoking that is a threat to, I guess, this idolatry of earthly power, of money, of the market, of whatever you want to call it. And of course, all good priests smoke. So,
Of course. I mean, how else are they going to pass the time? They're on campuses that allow smoking. Duke University doesn't allow smoking, one of the worst theology departments in the country.
Yeah, it adds up. And they also, a lot of
smoking.
Franciscan does.
I said, I bet you. I actually, I should have fact checked that before.
Yeah. I know Benedictine College does not allow it, which to me is very shocking.
Well, maybe they'll listen to this and
oh yeah, funny.
Exactly. There's no better lesson of memento mori than
Exactly. It's very Benedictine. Absolutely. Yeah. Who was it? There was a pope who said that he would not be able to live chastity without cigarettes.
That's amazing. you will have to tell me this.
Yeah, chastity sticks, in addition to being cancer sticks. But yeah, so just back to the whole age thing, I do want to talk about like young people and smoking, because I'm seeing now that people under 21 think that cigarettes are absolutely disgusting and evil. So like, yeah, like morally evil, but just like the whole tobacco thing is like repulsive to them. And that like weed is the healthy alternative because you don't get cancer and it's, relaxes you, it calms you down. And I think it just shows how much the youth culture has changed over the last 20 years. That like weed, which sure does not have as many adverse effects on the body, but like
that we know of. I mean, the thing is, if I ground up coffee beans and put it into a pipe and set fire to it, the ignition, going to cause me personally lung troubles. We have no idea if weed is going to scale the way tobacco did. And that is, that's one of those great misleading things, that the tobacco puritanism occurred at the same time as the weed liberalization. So it is one of it is one of those interesting dichotomies that an emperor has no clothes situation, where it's like, you've assured us that weed, in which you light something on fire and breathe it in, has no long-term effects aside from schizophrenia. Whereas if we're talking about neurological disorders, nicotine is actually a wonder drug for your brain. It's actually one of there's a big campaign in the medical community to take it off the scheduled poison list so that we can explore it as a possible cure for dementia, because it speeds up blood flow to the brain, which I mean, I'm no scientist. I majored in history and government. So kids, don't do either of those things. Major in something worthwhile like philosophy. Um, but in terms of the growth of weed culture, it's literally because our elites accept weed. They claim that weed is responsible and acid are responsible for the computer and all of these modern marvels. What they don't acknowledge, and what Loot Walk does as you take a pull of your vaporizer, is that the Industrial Revolution occurred precisely in those countries that started importing and adopting en masse tobacco use. So it seems like there was a brain infusion that came with this little stick right here. So
yeah,
it's but that's contingent on being able to leave your desk.
and I think there is, again, like there's this spiritual existential dimension, because nicotine incites desire, it inflames it, whereas weed really sedates it or like disconnects you from it. And I think there is on one hand, the anti-cigarette mentality does push this productivity kind of thing, but also pushes a total like apathy about anything, like takes away your drive to accomplish something in a true sense, to build something meaningful. Whereas I think all passionate people who wanted to create something of their life, create something for society, I mean, not all of them, but most people smoke cigarettes, and there's a real connection there. Whereas weed like makes you be like, oh, whatever.
I'm not here to put anybody down. But the depressant aspect of marijuana, I'm not gonna pretend that my vice is some panacea, but the weed advocates do pretend that their drug is a panacea. They insist it's going to fix everything from pain management to okay, but pain management and glaucoma and it's great for cancer patients, and they never, and this represents reflects America's Puritan culture rather than the Catholic one. They never acknowledge that there's a trade-off. Like, hey, there's also this thing called schizophrenia, which it seems to exacerbate.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've ever met schizophrenics, they love tobacco because tobacco grounds them.
Exactly. And weed removes you from reality.
And that's the thing. Weed is mind altering. We're fine with mind altering. We abhor contemplation.
Yeah, like there can't be an integration between the body, reality, the spirit. Like it's everything has to become disconnected. And yeah, like that is the kind of Puritan anthropology, this disconnect between body and soul. But yeah, no, I was also gonna say that all the potheads that I knew in college really had no drive to pursue anything. And again, I don't want to make a generalization about every single pothead, but that seems to be the trend. Like you're chill, like life is whatever, you just float on through. And the people who would go outside the dorms to smoke were like the weird moody artists who like, yeah, they were weird, but there was some search going on, there was some tension in their life which made them more interesting. But
my grandma, when I started smoking, said that she said you should be thankful for the smoking bans that'll help you identify who the interesting people are.
That's wise.
That is
very wise.
My inheritance from her was 10 cartons of Kent Gold Light 100s.
Wow.
I think I was the only non-septuagenarian smoking those when I was in college.
So are those Marlboro Special blends you have right now?
They are. Do you want one?
Actually, I'll take one virtually.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever bought a full pack of them. I've borrowed some. They're pretty good. I smoked Reds for a while, but then they made me feel like I had cancer at least. So I had to lay off.
See, I was Reds, and then my first daughter was born. I went to mediums, and then Special blends came out. So
okay, yeah, I'm on the vegan cigarette, American Spirits, all natural.
Okay, see that's a fine thing.
Yeah,
that's something that comes from the ground. The vaporizers are made from Chinese antifreeze.
Yep.
You might as well be vaping fentanyl.
Yeah, I go between either extreme, either the vape or the American Spirits. But I taste the additives though if I have a Marlboro. Like my mouth gets all weird. Yeah, I can't do it anymore. One or
Oh,
the
I know.
other, either all chemical or all natural.
There you go. See, I'm a balanced individual.
Yes. So no, back to the age. What I remember when I was in high school, that like, well, even before high school, they were drilling it in our heads that like smoking is evil, smokers are losers, we should look down on them, we should feel bad for them. It was still kind of cool to go out and smoke like in the like during lunch or after school. Like we still kind of revered them, but there was still a sense of like, oh, but they are like those kids are really sad because they're like, depressed and whatever. But now like it's, at least from what I hear from kids, it's like, oh yeah, they smoke, they're a real loser. I'm like, no, they're kind of cool.
That's it. Smoking will never be not cool. Everybody knows this. That's why we had to invent vaporizers. Patches were widely available, so was the gum. But there's something about it, as Dr. Richard Selzer said in his Mortal Lessons, Notes on the Arts of Surgery. He said, smoking is an announcement that I am here. The same way whistling is a way of saying I'm here. Or a lady putting on her perfume is a demand to acknowledge the soul.
Oh, wow.
And Richard Selzer is, famous for winning the National Magazine Writing Award for his contributions to Esquire, including his agnostic Yale Medical School professor's opinion on why abortion is an absolute travesty and the equivalent of infanticide. So we've fallen a long way since 1974, when the tobacco smoking rate was about 50%, and now we have a youth culture that is about 6% has ever even experimented with cigarettes. And what's funny about that is, despite the decline in overall tobacco use, the Marine Corps has found in its recruiting that 80% of enlisted Marines tried tobacco. That remains true for everybody. And what is our elite solution to this? The actual Department IG recommended, well, we should stop recruiting cigarette smokers.
Yep.
Okay, we'll complete the Marine Corps amid a recruitment crisis. It's very funny to see which way the elite is pivoting. It's, let's recruit through video games, not the guys who have a memento mori rebellious attitude. It's very funny.
No, and it also speaks to the fact that like this generation or the upcoming generations are like really risk averse. Like really this cult of health, this cult of well-being turns into like, we want to avoid anything that's uncomfortable, anything that's unclean, anything that's risky, that puts us in front of the fact that we are going to die. And even before that, that every day we face the death drive, the drive to violence, sinfulness. Like there are always going to be reminders of death and finitude and destruction, and cigarettes are a very clear sign of that. So, and you also see that in like the anti-military mentality, that like, not that war is anything awesome, but this idea that, instead of us protecting the country, like let's turn to these technocratic elites to create a utopia for us, that no one has to do anything that's out of our comfort zone or that puts us at risk.
Well, that reflects a mentality that is all about longevity. Longevity is the motivating factor in the billionaire eating salmon, and it's increasingly becoming the mentality of the entire broader society, where you think the number of years you spend here on Earth matter more than any sense of duty or any sense of contribution to society. And it's one of those things where, if longevity was the end all be all, then John Basilone wasted his life when he went back and died on Iwo Jima, after winning the Medal of Honor and getting the chance to escape World War II. That's the concept behind this whole mentality: is longevity is the ultimate good. It doesn't matter how you spend it, because there's no such thing as eternity in a materialist worldview. So you only have here. So the only value that matters is longevity. And if anything threatens longevity, we saw this during the lockdowns, we see this in the anti-tobacco hysteria, then we have to extinguish it. And the way to get a non-judgmental populace to turn against the class, when increasingly we're calling on them to embrace all kinds of libertinism, is to say that that person's habit threatens your longevity. We see it with Mothers Against Drunk Driving. We see it with the anti-smoking campaign. America was fine with a live and let live smoking section, non-smoking section. And it was really only until the anti-tobacco zealots fudged the research and started showing, selectively that your tobacco habit threatens longevity of those around you, that America started to accept the idea that no, never mind, it's not enough to have some smoking bars and some non-smoking bars, some smoking sections, non-smoking sections. We have to get rid of it completely. And during COVID times, that actually came back to bite them, because the free market, and I have my criticisms there, but the free market responded when New York City banned indoor tobacco use in bars. They responded by creating new air filtration systems that could clean out a dive bar in 6 minutes flat. Wow. And basically started embracing hospital technology. And Bloomberg, as a former smoker, who are Judases all around, said, no, we won't make exceptions if somebody goes out and buys this machine. But, we sure could have used it 20 years later when a respiratory plague descended upon the globe.
Yeah, and the class difference is interesting, because you see there's this very elitist, technocratic understanding of purity, which is totally foreign to, especially to working class, to ethnic immigrant groups, non-suburban groups. Like this understanding of cleanliness is like, again, it's so detached from reality, at least people living like concretely in the real world. And I think so it's interesting in the other article you wrote about the loss of these smoking bars and restaurants. You mentioned that one of them was replaced by a Shake Shack, and then there's the Whole Foods down the block. So you get this sense that like, oh, you're creating this landscape that in theory is very idyllic, very utopian, but in reality is suffocates the human, especially, again, people, working class, ethnic, whatever groups.
Yeah, the 34 Club in St. Louis.
Yeah,
this is a place where a union welder could go hang out with Hall of Fame baseball players, and they tore it down for a Shake Shack and a bunch of multi-use apartments. Rest in peace, 34 Club. It was one of the best bars I've ever been to.
So what areas so like where would you be certain that if you light up, people are going to give you a look or give you a comment? I'm curious to know.
So outside of church, well, and it's very funny. I remember once posing the question to in confession. I think I'm allowed to say what the priest said in confession, or
yeah, you can.
Canon lawyer on here. Now I just want to make sure I'm not breaking the seal. But I went to confession before Mass, and the priest said, step up today with no fear, receive. And it was a great way to guilt trip me into going to Mass. I intended to head straight back to the office. He got me. I was like, all right, that's great. And then I went, oh, Father, I smoked a cigarette before I walked in here today. And,
I thought you were going to say in the church.
No, not in the church.
Oh,
not in the church.
That's exciting.
And I said, does that break the fast? And he goes, that doesn't break the fast.
Oh,
no, you're fine.
Yeah.
I was so relieved.
Does it break the fast to breathe in incense during Mass? No, that's fine.
Yes, but this is something that's triggerable. Now, still, I still do try to not have my cigarette an hour before Mass.
That's very holy.
No, it's not holy. It's scrupulous. But but it's also one of those things where this is one of those tiny sacrifices you offer up to the Lord.
Yeah.
And that means when I come out of Mass, I really want a cigarette. So I'll light up I think the dirty look comes from my wife more than anything else. But this speaks to the generational thing that you were getting to before, is my daughter came home from her first day of kindergarten and told me I shouldn't smoke.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there like, your teacher should teach you how to read. You can't read yet. How did you pick it up this quickly? Like, that's how much they're drilling this into them.
I've seen kids like grab cigarettes out of their parents' hands.
Oh my God.
It's
Yeah.
gonna kill them.
Yeah. No, the easiest way to fix that is to put it out on their foreheads. Just kidding. I have all girls. I would never do that. If I had a son, though, right on his forehead.
That's okay.
He'll make him look cool. He'll have a story. But this speaks to, you know, the generational problem, where this is the first thing we teach the kids when they walk in. And then conservatives, you know, I go to a very conservative parish. There are conservatives out there who will go like, don't smoke in front of the kids.
Well, it depends which kind. Are they neocons or paleocons?
Well, I said Catholic. Which is to say, it's a mix of both.
Wait. Ethnically, what kind of parish is it predominantly?
Irish.
Irish are scandalized by smoking outside the church.
Mostly the wives.
Okay, because I know.
Well, here's the other thing: is the first country to spearhead Michael Bloomberg's New York City plan was Ireland.
Of course, it was Ireland.
I flew into Ireland in 2003 and was unable to smoke indoors. Now, they let me drink indoors. In the clubs at 7, or I guess I was 16 at the time. But
I would go under without that.
But so it's one of those funny things, technocratic liberalism wants to create a divide between you and your children. They instruct the kids to go home and smack the cigarettes out of their parents' hands. But even more than that, I mean, you wouldn't expect children who have been taught, respect your elders, to start criticizing adults about anything. That's a sign of dysfunction in a society, in a healthy society, which we do not have. But in this one regard, random kids will stop riding their scooters on the sidewalk, look at me and go, "You should put that out." Strangers, kids.
Yeah.
It's a marvel to see how effective that propaganda has been. I'm gonna start calling them JoJo rabbits.
Yeah. Okay, so side story about smoking inside churches. I have a nonfiction and then a fictional. So one, servant of God, Carmen Hernandez, who's on her way to being beatified. She was visiting John Paul II I think like, it was a meeting room, but there's also a chapel in there. And before JP2 comes in, she asks one of the priests, "Is Jesus in the tabernacle?" And he's like, "No, it's empty." So then she lit up and started smoking in this chapel. And then
I don't have to genuflect.
Yeah. So John Paul came in and he was like, "Who told you she could do that?" And she was like, "I don't care. If Jesus isn't in the tabernacle, no one's going to stop me."
Yeah. This might as well be the post office.
Yeah. So that's one. And then it was, what's his name?
Titus Brandsma?
No. Who's the
recently canonized?
He was canonized.
He was yeah. The same pope that banned the sale of tobacco in Vatican City.
Yeah, how can we forget?
The patron of smoking.
The most scandalous.
And Catholic journalism.
Papacy. Yeah. No, it was okay. F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote this short story called "Thanks for the Light." Do you know it?
I do not.
It's awesome. It's so basically this woman has a cigarette and she doesn't have a lighter, and she's looking everywhere for a lighter, and then she ends up in a Catholic church and decides to sit in front of a Mary statue and pray, and then she falls asleep, and then when she wakes up, her cigarette is lit, and she's like, "Thanks for the light, Mary."
You're kidding.
Story.
Oh my gosh, I cannot. I have his correspondence in the book. I'm sure he got some letters from some people.
Yeah, that one was awesome. But yeah, but in terms of smoking outside churches, that's always interesting because, yeah, like I see when I'm in like a working class ethnic neighborhood, like certain parts of Brooklyn, it's very normal right after mass, everybody lights up. Especially like I know a lot of Italians, like straight up from Italy, who like everybody will smoke out. I mean, they're constantly smoking anyway. But like if you're in a suburban area or certain parts of Manhattan, like yeah, you'll get death stares. People have come up to me on the streets in certain neighborhoods and told me like you're gonna die. That's bad. Like adults will tell me that.
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, you're gonna die too.
yeah. So
Uh,
will you. Ditto.
I wouldn't mind dying soon because then I can go to heaven and won't have to deal with people like you. So I never said that. I want to.
No, no, no. We don't want to be. We don't want to be that uncharitable.
No. Yeah, but so the neighborhood, so in Jersey, the neighborhoods where you can still smoke outside at restaurants in Newark, they'll not only do they not have a problem, they'll bring you ashtrays. Um, super common. Also, Bronx, Little Italy. They'll bring
Of course, the Bronx will. That's where the McMorris clan resides from.
Okay, that makes sense then.
Every rapper from the Bronx you ever heard about getting arrested in the aughts, that was my cousin.
Oh, well,
Hip hop police. I tried to tell him. But
yeah, so the neighborhoods like inner city ethnic neighborhoods, immigrant neighborhoods, like totally normal. I remember I said this in the article that I wrote. I was at a cafe, and I won't name which one, but it was in the West Village, claims to be a quote unquote Italian, authentic Italian cafe. Um, I was drinking a cappuccino, and what else do you do with your cappuccino but smoke a cigarette? So I lit up while I was sitting there outside. I wasn't inside. And then the tourists sitting around me like, and then the waitress comes out and she's like, "Excuse me, sir, can you step into the street?" And I'm like, I can't even go on the sidewalk to finish it. And you call this an authentic Italian cafe? So Italians aren't welcome here, obviously. But this is Lower Manhattan, so I should have known.
well, this speaks to one thing that's disappointing to me is the acquiescence. Is the signs in every Otis elevator in the United States still says if you smoke a cigarette in this elevator, it's a fine of $25.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, that's funny. If I do it in the bar, it's going to cost me like $500.
Yeah.
The fact that we acquiesced so quickly, once we gave up the elevator, it was only a matter of time before we lost the patio. And with outdoor dining, Virginia actually reached a detente. We didn't have a smoking ban here, and I monitored this from afar because the reason there are so many cigarette beats under my byline at the Spectator is because I'm notoriously late on deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
So when they need something quick, they're like, "Bill, write about smoking," and 24 hours, it's up on the website or ready for the magazine.
Yeah.
But when COVID hit, all of a sudden the smoking patios disappeared. It's like, no, now that everyone's outdoor dining, you have been banned from the patio as well. The cigarette ban happened in Virginia because of the Great Recession. Virginia was a deep red state.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the Great Recession and Obama was the Democratic nominee, they elected a Democratic governor in order to clean house and address the recession. His first piece of legislation he passed was to ban smoking, except in the international airport, because China flies into our international airport, and China famously smokes. So,
and Obama unfamously smokes, according to you. I did not know this.
No, Obama was smoking in the Rose Garden.
Wow.
Yeah, Obama, the man who oversaw the increase in tobacco prices for the first time in history, made them pay taxes for grunts in the military that he was sending into war zones, was himself a smoker.
Wow. How much are Marlboros down there?
So Marlboro's down here. Your Marlboro Lights carton as of January 1 went from, when I moved here, it was about 40, which is insane because that's what I was paying in Connecticut, the bluest of states, when I started smoking. But when I moved here in 2011, it was $40 a carton for Marlboro Special Blends. It was $50 a carton for Marlboro Lights, and now the special blends are about 60 to 70. The lights are resolutely about 80.
Okay.
And we're in the midst of Joe Biden, who owes his election to black voters in South Carolina, is about to ban menthol cigarettes. And what I find so interesting about this is the fact that when George W. Bush actually first countenanced, the Democratic Congress under George W. Bush first countenanced a menthol ban because they banned all flavors in the legislation that was eventually signed by Barack Obama in 2009. But while they were drafting it, that was put on the shelf because Al Sharpton joined forces with Rush Limbaugh to say that to ban menthols was anti-Black discrimination.
Yes, good job, Reverend Al.
Yeah, and the way that is portrayed today, when Joe Biden's trying to ban menthols, is for far too long, not banning menthols was tantamount to lynching, and that is how they're selling today. It's white supremacy to have menthol cigarettes, rather than what Al Sharpton wisely realized 15 years ago, which is, oh man, they're trying to take away something to take the sting off of our life under systematic oppression. I'm like, all right, Al.
That's a point. He's not wrong there. Yeah, but with no, I was gonna say with the airports. First, the fact that they still have the no smoking signs on airplanes after all these years, I find to be a little extra. But every airport I've been in outside the US has little smoking booth, like the little glass. Yeah, we don't have that.
Last one I saw was in Cincinnati.
Okay.
Because the Cincinnati airport is right on the border of Kentucky.
Okay.
It's one of those funny things where Cincinnati was once the beacon of hope for freedom. Across the Ohio River from Kentucky.
Yep.
Underground Railroad complete. And now that bridge that connects Kentucky to Cincinnati is full of a bunch of smokers heading over to go smoke in Kentucky.
So yeah, in Southern Europe, where I trace my roots, most countries you can still smoke inside. In Greece, you can smoke inside pretty much everywhere because that's all we do: drink coffee, smoke. That's partially why the economy is falling apart.
No, that's not true. That's not true. You guys also install illegal pools and then lie about it on your tax forms.
Oh, well, we can add that to the list of things we do. Well, that's pretty much it.
Civilization.
Yeah, well, we did that. I mean, that gives us a pass. We don't have to do anything else. So, and then, yeah, at least we're allowed to smoke inside there. When I went to the Holy Land, in Palestinian territory, you can smoke indoors. Israeli territory, you cannot, because I'm not going to say why, but you can.
I'm not going to touch that one.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, at least in Europe, that they're not as anti-smoking, and yet they have the little pictures and warnings, the giant ones on the packages. Some of them are very creative. I have to give them credit. Like you have like the open lungs bleeding, and there was one in Greece that was warning of erectile dysfunction, and you have like a naked guy looking down very sadly because of his ED.
So that's hilarious. I have 5 children, folks, so there's no way that that's true.
That's good to know. We'll keep that in mind.
But I will say when I started smoking, the New York Post did a great piece about Canada being the first North American country to adopt European style skull and crossbones type warnings on the labels. And by the time I had really committed to smoking, I saw one of the ads, and it was a cigarette burned all the way down to the filter, ash still intact, but hanging limply. And it says smoking causes, and I was like, give that man an award, because had I known as a teenage boy, maybe I wouldn't have
that's great.
started. But now that I'm a grown man and I know better, worth it.
Wow, that's a great advertisement.
Yeah, a great advertisement.
Very creative.
But that's the thing, we're only allowed to advertise one way now. You know, the Truth Initiative got started only because the judge ordered in the tobacco settlement, tobacco companies surrender 360, I think it was $358 billion to the state and local governments and the federal government. And one of the ways they had to use that was to counteract advertising, because the state should which has a monopoly, near monopoly these days, on the education of your children, and will tell them day one, instead of their ABCs, will tell them smoking is bad for you.
Yep.
They need an ad campaign too, so they can get creative. But in Europe, much to your point, which I have derailed, but in Europe, they accept everyone forgets pre-tobacco settlement. Everyone thinks it was the movie The Insider, where some brave tobacco worker comes forward and says, we knew it was going to hook everybody. That wasn't the turning point. Big Tobacco won every lawsuit every government entity brought against them, because they said every smoker knew what they were getting into. Because we've known, the Encyclopedia Britannica in like 1912 said that smoking causes cancer. We all knew. That was enough for Big Tobacco, and that's the mentality Europe has today, where they just say, well, if you're a smoker, that's a vice that's only going to hurt you. Only in America did it take hold that my cigarette was going to murder your child. Actually, the tobacco is the only instance in which liberals will acknowledge that there's life inside the womb. They're like, hey, if a mother smokes, that could hurt the baby. Wait, did you just say baby? I meant fetus. That if she wanted to murder,
now.
It's a
territory. Yeah. No, I think it's interesting though that what you're saying, that they'll have the giant advertisements in Europe, but like they don't care. They leave it at that. A real diversity, pluralism, I would say. Real tolerance. Can always count on the Southern Europeans for that. But yeah, let's make our way into the vaping and Juuls, starting with the Philip Morris experience you had. Fascinating article, very entertaining. So what was it like visiting that office there?
It was Philip Morris. For people still think Philip Morris is some Virginia company. In protest of the tobacco settlement, they said, forget you guys, we are fleeing to Switzerland, famously tolerant Switzerland. And they spun off Marlboro, everything, to a company called Altria. So Philip Morris is actually way committed to vaporizers and to smoking alternatives, which they sell as, hey, this is a new Philip Morris. We're not denying that smoking is bad anymore. We care about our customers. When really it's becoming obvious that they care about the money. Now, here's the thing to understand about capitalists is I am way more devoted to the product than the capitalist is. And I am now a minority of the average consumer. So Philip Morris would way prefer you to vape than he would to smoke a cigarette, because he's addicted to your dollars. So they invented a new vaporizing device based on heat not burn technology that heats up the innards of a cigarette. And honestly, the menthol, not that bad. And I'm wondering if Biden is regretting trying to go forward with menthol ban, considering how much it will hinder quitting efforts through this technology. But that's another story. But this corporation doesn't care how it gets your money from your wallet. They don't care if it's through Chinese antifreeze or tobacco. In fact, Chinese antifreeze requires less workers. So, hey, four generations now of corporations committed to labor arbitrage would probably much prefer that you not trust the farmer and you only trust the chemist.
Yep.
So when I look at our post-tobacco world and our post-tobacco Philip Morris, I see it the same way you see our elites saying, hey, I know you guys all like burgers, but have you considered vegan burgers? Beyond Meat? They're invented in a lab. This is the escape from reality that you were referring to earlier. We will use chemistry so that we will get the taste of a burger without a burger.
Yep.
We will use chemistry. Just 7 guys in a lab mixing some stuff together in order to escape tobacco. And we'll use chemistry to free women from childbirth. This is an experiment done society-wide. And I've never written anything serious. All my tobacco articles are tongue-in-cheek. I love them all.
Which makes them entertaining.
But, now that I'm sitting here with a philosopher and you've made me think about them, it really does make me scared that this is part and parcel. You would expect Philip Morris to rage against the fight of nature. And instead you get Philip Morris going, no, this is great because it's cheaper to do the antifreeze option. We just got to pay a few chemical engineers.
Yeah, and it also, I mean, just to go on an anti-capitalist tirade for a second, it shows capitalism's true colors, because it really is the idolatry of something artificial, something man-made, so that, like you said, the commitment is not to the quality of the product, the experience, the effect that it has on the soul. It's money. And at the end of the day, like, if money becomes the center, then we become very much detached from our humanity, from reality. And I think now we're starting to see, and I'm just saying this because at least for religious folk who love to defend capitalism, it's like, sure, a modified version with, a strong moral religious kind of foundation, but at the end of the day, in itself, it's, I mean, maybe for like a WASP, for a Protestant kind of understanding of Christianity, sure, but like a sacramental understanding, there's nothing sacramental about that kind of system. And now we see that.
Yeah, I've yet to encounter a plastic chalice.
I have in evangelical churches.
Oh,
Well, not a chalice,
well, I
but
don't go
a
there.
little cup.
I'm sorry. I've yet to see a plastic container with the body, blood, soul, and divinity of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Actually, I do have a gift from our Pentecostal neighbors of, they call it a sacrament cup.
Yep. I don't know that.
Yeah.
I do have to ask though, so in the Jewel and Biden article, you say that it's mostly these young libertarians and Democrats who are vaping. Why do you say that? I'm not sure if I see that.
That's my experience in DC.
That's your experience.
Yeah.
Okay. I see. Yeah, because I see a lot more people, like I'm seeing a lot more working class, again, ethnic immigrant groups vaping now, especially like in bars and clubs and some restaurants.
Well, what do they do on the patio afterwards?
Some are vaping.
Some are vaping.
I'm seeing more and more. Like I'm seeing people who would smoke or who used to smoke vaping, and it's not just like young libertarians.
All right. So yeah. I call out libertarians and Democrats not because Republicans don't smoke, and not because conservatives don't smoke, and vape, and not because Catholics don't vape. The Catholics who vape in DC are always ashamed of it.
Yeah, like
conservatives, people who vape. And you will recall in that article I specified exactly what vapes I was talking about, where their BAC will hit a certain level and they will go, I remember college, this smells so much better than my vape, please give me a cigarette. Well, then on their bicycle commutes the next day, fake a cough, go and that is the difference.
Yeah. And I can say, as I puff on this vape right here, which is not a Juul, it's a Puff Plus, it's disposable, so even more lack of commitment. No, I mean, I see, I am one of those people who's ashamed of it. Because my whole history.
Lack of commitment.
Yeah, because there's no commitment. The whole.
Hey, I'm dating this single mom, but I'm never going to marry her.
Yeah.
That's what that screams.
This reflects the mentality, though, the risk averse thing. But no, I started on hookah. I first smoked hookah and I really enjoyed it. And then I found hookah pens and I was like, hey, this is a hookah that I can bring with me. And then I tried cigarettes and I was like, oh, but this is a whole other thing. And then I went back, I would go back and forth between hookah pens and cigarettes. And then there was a point, I don't remember why, I got off the hookah pens. I guess no, because I read an article about popcorn lung and I didn't want that. I'd rather have cancer than popcorn lung.
What is popcorn lung?
Popcorn lung, apparently whatever's in here makes the blood vessels start to like bubble up. I don't know what's gonna do to me, but I got scared for a second. Put it down for maybe,
Antifreeze.
yeah, the antifreeze. I think I went off of it for 3 or 4 years. And then no, it was I went to a concert once. They started doing them after COVID, and I needed something to smoke inside the concert, so I bought the vape. And then I just kept going until Lent this year when I went back on the cigarettes completely. And I have to say, like, totally changed my spiritual life because ultimately, yeah, it's like there is no commitment to it. You could do it anywhere. You could do it in bed. You could do it in a restaurant. And like, I don't know, it's like you feel like you become a blob. You feel like everything's vaporous then when you're smoking it, unlike the cigarette, which you have to commit, you have to go outside and you're going to smell and you have to burn it and has a limited amount of smoke in it. Whereas the vape, you can just keep going and going and going and nothing's going to stop you. So I don't know. I'll do it once in a while now, but like I see the effect that it has on just like my sense of reality, the spiritual realm, and I'm definitely not proud of it in any way.
That's actually eye-opening. Can you speak to that? Because one of the things that I noticed, and one of my problems when my friends would try to get me to quit smoking and say, "Hey, try my vape," um, was I coughed every time I vaped. I coughed every time I vaped because there was nothing that triggered me to stop pulling.
Okay, interesting.
Whereas when I'm inhaling a cigarette, as I just did, I can feel it on my tonsils, and I go, "Up, time to inhale." That's the end of the drag. Whereas when you're vaping, I
Yeah,
always sat there and would go, "Oh, that's weird. There, it tastes like fruit, and I don't feel a burn." And then I would go to exhale and embarrass myself.
yeah, no, I mean,
But that points to the chase that you're saying.
yeah,
Hey, never be satisfied. Never feel. And this is what Richard Selzer said in his book is, the diaphragm controls your cigarette intake,
yeah,
and it seems like the vape does not do that.
yeah. No, and I really think it's super
Taste.
symbolic. Yeah, no, it's like I think it's very symbolic of the postmodern mentality or like the liquid modern experience because again, like there's no tie to anything real. Like it's a technologically produced product. It's not coming from the earth. It's not coming from God. But again, the fact that there's no limitation, it's like you get the buzz and then you just can just keep going, going, and going
You keep
anywhere.
chasing. Yeah.
So it's like, but it's to the point that it makes your whole experience of reality like liquid. Like nothing is fixed anymore. Nothing involves rest or commitment.
There's no memento mori afterward.
Yeah, no,
You can be
there's
assured
not.
of its safety. Yeah.
Yeah,
Same way a condom can
exactly.
make you assured that, hey, you could get AIDS, but you won't have a baby. And
Exactly.
that is one of those things where you see this in the you see this in markets all over the place
Mhm.
where now they're selling. I just saw these pop up on the shelves of our grocery stores is pre-mixed Crown Royal and colas.
No, no.
Hey, it's just gonna be a sweet thing. It's the seltzer craze. It
That's
is
disgusting. No.
it's we will mask the death causing agent,
Yeah.
and that way you won't even think about death as you are consuming it, even
Yeah.
though it's based on the same principle as that Bud Heavy that bowling league guy
Yeah.
drinks.
Yeah.
And
Mm,
gosh, I mean, yeah, vaporizers actually gave the green light to the alcohol industry to go, hey, let's mask
yeah.
the taste of alcohol by throwing seltzer in it
Yeah.
and all sorts of hey, this is what forest is supposed to smell like. We're all an air freshener market these days. Whereas, in days of yore, Marlboro Red was Marlboro Red. You knew it would hurt more. Marlboro Light is Marlboro Light. A Marlboro Select is Marlboro Light tobacco that fell on the ground. That's why it's $10 less a carton.
Yeah. No, and like I'll dare to say that in the same way that the cigarette grounds you in reality, grounds you in the fact that yes, you're gonna die. The drive for pleasure is risky, but like it also points you to this kind of tension with the transcendent towards some ultimate fulfillment. I do think that the vape has, because it separates you from reality, it doesn't ground you, like does possess more of this dark, dare I say, demonic element. A little freaky, but I don't know, I do feel it. And especially
the fact that technology was so quickly adopted, that the technology develops on materialist grounds. We will fulfill your nicotine needs, and then is immediately adopted into mind-altering drugs. Points you to something. I'm gonna say demonic, but
something.
Oh wait, this isn't a video podcast. My wink
he winked
was uncaptured
as I take a drag. No, the worst thing though, the most dark experience is when you're in bed vaping, checking Instagram, scrolling through Instagram while simultaneously watching Netflix. That's like the darkest I've ever been at, and it's bad.
All right, so I don't have Instagram. I have it's owned by Facebook. Yeah, I have Facebook.
Yeah.
I go onto it once a year to see which of my friends have died.
Oh, that's useful.
And then when none of them have died, I kick over a garbage can and say, "I'll see you fuckers next year."
No, Instagram is worse though. It's more demonic than Facebook because I mean the image-oriented thing. Yeah, it's
no, I have daughters. I know not to let them on there.
Oh no, please. Which is not as bad as TikTok though. TikTok is
TikTok is a Chinese spy operation. So
yeah.
Oh, I just remember the thing I was going to say.
Yes.
We disguise alcohol with sweetness, and we disguise THC with brownies, and then people end up eating 50 brownies. Like it's very funny how snack culture has become our way of escaping reality.
Yeah.
Anything but and it comes from the same organic types where oh, I only shop at Whole Foods and I only buy my weed brownies from X, Y, and Z person.
Yeah. No, that's true.
It's wild.
Yeah.
I think the real lesson to be learned from all of this is the anti-tobacco campaign was the actual first triumph of social liberalism.
Mm-hmm.
And that became the playbook for everything else we have seen since then. John Staden, neurologist from Duke University, wrote a great book talking about how all of the research that funded secondhand smoke was completely bull from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a non-smoker. He doesn't have any opinion on any smoking legislation, but what he said was smoking is a personal health decision, but the only way to get it banned was to make it a public one. And by the time he wrote this, I think it was 2014, tobacco had already been eliminated or restricted in almost every state. But when people realized that they could make a public health claim about a private decision, that's when everything changed. All of a sudden, Prop 8 wasn't about the institution of marriage anymore.
Mm-hmm.
it was about, hey, people kill themselves, transgender surgery. People kill themselves based on your opinions.
Mhm.
The smoking debate has actually fueled every single cultural debate we have had since then. Everything that's branded a social issue, the left has used the anti-smoking playbook to say, no, 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 your opinion does not just apply to you anymore. You can't have a different definition of marriage. If you have that definition of marriage, teenagers will die. If you have that definition of gender, people will die. It is an
Yeah.
emotional manipulation campaign, not grounded in science, but wearing its clothing. And I think
Mm.
people should contemplate this every time we see any cultural debate moving forward. So even if you're not a smoker here today, consider the thing that you hold most dear will someday be attacked using the same playbook that was used to attack me.
I thought you were going to say you should consider to start smoking, but
Oh, no, 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 no. So
consider both.
because they're going to use that tactic against you, start smoking. Good point.
Exactly.
Thank
That's
you
a perfect point.
for doing the joke for me. Crap.
Yeah.
But no, it's a real thing. Not a joke.
That's true. It's true.
It's happening.
Well, with that having been said, thank you for coming on, Billy. What are you going to plug before we go?
Fort Hunt softball. My
Hmm.
daughters are really good at Fort Hunt softball, but also I'm academic director at the National Journalism Center. So if you have college students who are interested in learning journalism that actually looks at facts instead of advancing narratives, please send them my way.
Awesome. And where can they follow you?
They can follow me at F Bill McMorris on twitter.com.
A great
And,
place.
and every follower I get off this podcast will discover what the F stands for, because that is not my name.
I thought you were going to offer them a free pack, but
Ooh,
that's a good
no,
idea.
no, that's expensive, man. I just told you how much it costs.
Well, if you buy duty free, you can save a lot.
Actually, when I went to cover TED Talks duty free, $70 when you're coming back from Canada. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I saved a couple hundred through duty free. But really, thank you for coming on. This was fun.
Fun is a word for it. Thank you so much for having me and tolerating me.
Yes.